Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take those monumental works, piles of research, maybe even your own notes, and really try to pull out the key insights for you.
Exactly. Getting to the core of it all.
And today, we're doing a really fascinating deep dive. We're tackling Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, a classic.
Absolute classic. Foundational, really.
Right. So our mission for you today is to unpack the core success principles in this book, look at why it's lasted so long, it's pretty amazing backstory, and figure out what timeless wisdom you can actually use.
And that origin story is something else.
It really is. I mean, this wasn't just some idea Hill had in isolation. You've got Andrew Carnegie, industrial giant, one of the richest men ever, apparently commissioning Hill, saying, go figure out what makes successful people tick. And Hill spends, over 20 years on it.
Yeah, interviewing more than 500 people. We're talking Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, the legends.
He was trying to find the common thread, the secret sauce, just incredible groundwork.
Definitely sets it apart.
Okay, so now that we've kind of set that scene, let's just quickly get the basic facts down before we dive into the actual principles.
Good idea. Context is key.
So, author, Napoleon Hill, published first in 1937. Genre-wise, it's firmly in personal development, self-help, wealth creation.
Right.
And page count, usually around 250 pages, give or take, depending on the edition you pick up.
And it's really important to understand, like you said, its significance. It's often called the grandfather of this whole genre, motivational wealth-building literature.
Yeah, you hear that a lot.
And that Carnegie Commission is just central. Over 2 decades, talking to people like Alexander Graham Bell, John D. Rockefeller, on top of Ford and Edison, he was essentially trying to reverse engineer what made them successful.
Extracting the principles.
Exactly. And that extensive research, talking to these actual, titans of industry, gives the book a kind of authority that, many others lack.
Right. It wasn't just theory. Okay, so this brings us to the real meat of it, the 13 principles. This is where Hill pulls it all together.
The distillation of all that work.
And he argues these aren't just for getting rich, right? They're supposedly for achievement in, pretty much any field.
That's his claim. Universal principles.
Let's walk through them. You'll probably notice a lot of this is about your internal state, your mindset.
Very much so.
Okay, first up, the sort of mental foundations. Number 1 is desire. Hill says it has to be a burning desire, not just a wish.
Intensity is crucial there.
And backed by a definite plan. It's the starting point for everything, he argues.
Then comes faith. And this isn't necessarily religious faith, but more like unwavering belief. Visualization, really believing you can achieve that desire.
Yeah, like seeing it already done.
Pretty much. And linked to that is autosuggestion. This is basically self-talk, right?
Yeah.
Consciously feeding positive thoughts, affirmations into your subconscious.
Like programming yourself.
Kind of, yes. Influencing your underlying beliefs and therefore your actions.
It's interesting how he starts purely with the mind.
Absolutely. The internal world comes first. Then he bridges to more practical stuff, like number 4, specialized knowledge.
Right, not just general education, but specific applied knowledge, knowing your stuff in your field.
Exactly. And then imagination. He calls it the workshop of the mind.
I like that phrase.
Yeah, it's where you create your plans, shape your ideas. Very visual.
And then logically, number 6 is organized planning. You have the ideas, now you need to turn them into actual practical steps, an action plan.
Absolutely essential. Ideas without plans are just, ideas.
Then comes decision. This one's interesting. He stresses making decisions quickly and firmly. Mastering procrastination, he saw decisiveness as a major trait of successful people.
Indecision being a killer of momentum.
Exactly. And number 8, persistence. Just sticking with it. Sustained effort, especially when things get tough. Keep building that faith, keep pushing towards the desire.
Yeah, that grit factor. Crucial.
Okay, now the principles start getting a bit different, maybe more complex or subtle.
Yeah, this is where he blends the practical with things that maybe sound a bit more out there to some folks today.
Like number 9, power of the mastermind.
Right. This is a big one for Hill. The idea that when 2 or more minds work together in harmony towards a common goal, they create this synergistic force, like a third, more powerful mind.
So teamwork makes the dream work, but amplified.
Kinda, yeah. But with this idea of a distinct driving force being created, it raises questions about group energy and collaboration.
The number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This one probably raises the most eyebrows.
It often does, and it's frequently misunderstood.
Yeah.
Hill wasn't talking about, the act itself directly, but about harnessing the powerful energy associated with sexual desire
Okay.
and channeling or transmuting it into creative drive, motivation, and productive work, turning that raw energy into fuel for achievement.
So redirecting a powerful force.
That's the core idea. Then he talks about the subconscious mind. He presents it as this link, a bridge between your conscious thoughts and what he calls infinite intelligence or universal intelligence.
Getting a bit metaphysical there.
Definitely. And similarly with the brain, which he describes almost like a broadcasting and receiving station for thought. Like it can tune into thoughts from the ether.
Wow, okay.
And finally,
Number 13, the sixth sense. This is that intuition, the hunch, the gut feeling. Hull believed it develops as you master the other principles, giving you guidance that goes beyond pure logic, built from experience, but also maybe tapping into something deeper.
so you see that mix you mentioned, practical planning, persistence, but also subconscious power, intuition, this mastermind idea.
Exactly. It's a really unique combination of tangible actions and, well, more intangible, mental and almost spiritual concepts. It makes you think about how he saw all these things working together. It definitely does. So we've laid out these principles, which leads to the big question. What makes this book stick? Why is it still so influential nearly a century later? What's its magic?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, maybe literally in this case. I think there are a few key things. First, it's the timeless wisdom. Despite the 1930s context, the core ideas about belief, desire, persistence, they just don't seem to age much.
They still feel relevant.
They really do.
Yeah.
Also, the mindset focus is huge. It's not about teaching you, say, stock trading tactics or specific business models which change constantly. It's about shaping your thinking.
The internal foundation.
Precisely. Then there's that spiritual and psychological blend we talked about. He pulls in ideas about the subconscious, belief, faith.
Yeah.
It resonates with people on a deeper level than just pure strategy.
It connects emotionally.
I think so. It's definitely inspiring and motivational. It genuinely encourages you to believe in yourself, to aim high. And crucially, it feels backed by research. Knowing Hill spent years talking to Carnegie, Ford, Edison, it lends credibility.
It's not just one guy's opinion.
Right. Plus, it's very action-oriented. These principles are meant to be applied. It's a workbook for success, in a way.
You're meant to do things.
Exactly. And finally, you just can't ignore its influence. It's widely influential. So many modern entrepreneurs, speakers, people like Tony Robbins, Bob Proctor, even Oprah's mentioned its impact. It laid the groundwork for a lot that came after.
That's a powerful combination of strengths. But, no work this big avoids criticism. And for a proper deep dive, we need to look at the other side, too. Where does Think and Grow Rich get pushback?
Absolutely. And it's important to address those points. One common criticism is simply the outdated language and examples. You read it now, and some of the terms, the cultural references, they definitely feel like they're from 1930s America.
Yeah, that's fair. Times change.
For sure. Then there's the critique about overemphasis on belief. Some argue it leans too heavily on positive thinking, almost suggesting belief alone is enough, without maybe enough stress on practical strategy, market realities, hard skills.
The whole manifestation debate, kind of.
Sort of. It raises that question. How much is mindset, and how much is concrete action, and, frankly, luck or circumstance? Where's the balance?
Good point. What else?
Well, there's the lack of scientific rigor for some concepts, things like the sixth sense, infinite intelligence, the brain as a broadcaster. These are metaphysical ideas. They aren't backed by empirical science, and that bothers some readers.
They're leaps of faith, in a way.
You could say that. And finally, a really important one today is the gender and diversity bias. It was written in an era where the prominent success stories featured were overwhelmingly white men. Women and minorities are largely absent from his examples.
Yeah, that definitely reflects its time, and it stands out now.
It does. You have to read it with that historical context in mind.
So taking all that into account, the massive influence, the enduring principles, but also these valid criticisms, what's the verdict on its legacy? How do we sum up its place?
I mean, its legacy is just undeniable, really. Sales figures are estimated at over 100 million copies worldwide. That's staggering. It fundamentally shaped the personal development field, inspired countless entrepreneurs, leaders, speakers. It consistently shows up on best self-help books lists, even today.
So its impact is huge.
Immense. Regardless of the criticisms, its footprint on how people think about success and achievement is massive.
What a journey, then. We've gone from Carnegie's commission to the 13 principles, the strengths, the criticisms.
Yeah.
It really is a monumental work to unpack.
It truly is.
Yeah.
And reflecting on it all, my final take, I give it a solid 4.5 out of 5 stars.
Oh, interesting rating.
Yeah. It's pretty much a must-read if you're interested in personal development, the power of mindset, the psychology behind success. You have to acknowledge, yes, some parts feel dated, some are a bit esoteric or lack scientific backing.
Sure.
But the core principles, desire, faith, persistence, planning, the mastermind idea, they've clearly stood the test of time for millions of people. There's enduring power there.
A foundational text, warts and all.
Exactly. Worth engaging with, definitely.
Okay, so that leaves us with a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on. Hill laid out these principles, seemingly timeless, back in the 1930s. How might ideas like belief and persistence need to adapt or maybe be reinterpreted for you to truly thrive in the world we live in now, this incredibly fast-paced, complex, globally connected, information-saturated world? Something to think about.